Dear students, good morning. I kindly request you all to please pin this account gvmzadavaidyacollege.com, or it will be shown as Dr. Dadavaidya College of Education as a username. I hope you get it. I'll again repeat it. I kindly request you all to please pin the profile of Dr. Dadavaidya College of Education. Okay, so I'll again welcome you for the second session, which is use of teaching aids, the last skill which will be introduced to you. As you can see, the image behind me, you can sense the nature of the presentation. So, when it comes to teaching aid, what is teaching aid? Teaching aid is a tool used by teachers to help the students learn and brush up their reading, writing, understanding skill. It is a means to make the concept more interesting to students in a way that provides them an easy way of grasping knowledge regarding the subject, which is very basic definition. You might get some idea out of this definition. So what it says, it's a teaching aid is a tool which will brush up the student knowledge, and it provides a subtext. So we'll move to next slide. So I'll show you an interesting video. Let's make it slightly creative in that sense. So I'll be sharing a video online. Just a second.
Yes, sir.
ரெண்டு மூணு நாலு அஞ்சு
चुटकी में चिपकाए फेविक्विक।
Okay, so now you must be wondering why I showed this video. I feel that you must be remembering this advertisement. The people, the people who was born in 90s, they know this advertisement better. I don't know. You must be knowing it. I just hope. So why it is so interesting? And I think you will be you remember this advertisement if it was very popular that time. And it was very innovative concept when it came, because before that everything was very narrative in advertisement, and this was like triggering advertisement. So why it is important? Meaning is communicated well. If you remember, if you see, the whole act is finally summoned with this Fevikwik ad. So it talks about this quickness of the any action, right, and the function of the Fevikwik. And Fevikwik was very unique concept that time when it came, because before that there was no such glue which gives a quick result. Where Fevicol was there, SR was there, everything was there, but it was taking so much of time to show its result. But Fevikwik was new concept, and it is also important that to show that idea and to market the idea, sell it, Fevikwik, we need a new kind of approach to sell it. So that's what Maker did that. So the meaning is communicated well. Now we'll move to the next point is timing. What is important is the timing when the characters are enter in the frame. Somebody is sitting there still, then somebody suddenly comes and he does his act, and the quickness is shown with the timing. what is important at the same time is how you are making it interesting and at the same time absurd. If you remember, if you take example of any situation, what most of the time you remember is absurdity or the interesting aspects of anything. And that makes it more important and which makes you remember things. So I think it is quite relevant to relate this advertisement to your how you create your teaching aids. So I'll explain you the need of teaching aids. So what is the need of teaching aid? Every individual has tendency to forget. Proper use of teaching aid helps to retain more concept permanently. So if you remember in class, teacher tried to explain a lot of things, but we miss because there is no such visual memory which is created in a class. So the teaching aids helps to retain those concepts permanently. Student can learn better when they are motivated properly through different teaching aids. If you remember, when your teacher used to use teaching aids, you tend to get motivated out of the acts, the object, the relation to the object. So it makes sense in teaching. Teaching aid develops the proper image when the students see, hear, taste and smell. So I remember in my classroom in school times, when we were taught about animals and all, we were also told to bring small fishes and small leaves and all, so which somewhere relates to the memory. So the memory is retained through these objects, right? And the image stays in your mind. Also the smell part also makes you important. It helps you to retain knowledge. Teaching aids provide complete examples of conceptual thinking. Like sometimes some of the concepts are very difficult and it may not be explained through words. So you need some sort of illustration or demonstration which makes it easy to explain and to put it in the minds of students. The teaching aids create an environment of interest for the students. I think I don't need to explain this. You know, like anytime any interesting object or any interesting things which is brought in the class definitely creates an utmost interest. Teaching aids helps to increase the vocabulary of the students. If you remember those exercises where students were told to read text, like for example, if you take memory of a small kid who don't know what is A, so that needs to be taught in a visual sense. So this teaching aids will help you to retain the visual power of a letter. So and the letters will become words and words will create a sentence and sentences will create a meaning out of it, right? Teaching aid helps the teacher to get some time and make learning permanently, which I already explained you in different points. Teaching aids provide direct experience to the students. When you bring any object, you share it with students in a class, so they have direct contact with the material. So senses are activated with that. The image stays in their head. The smell of an object stays. So we'll move on to next. So I have explained you the need of a teaching aid. So we'll move on to types of teaching aids. So basically, those are categorized in this basic format: visual aids, audio aids, audio visual aids, smell-based and smell-based teaching aids. So what is visual aid? The aid which use sense of vision are called visual aid. For example, actual objects, models, pictures, charts, maps, flashcard, flannel board, blackboard also can be used, chalk, and most of the visual aids are chalkboard which we use for very literal translation of your text. So I think this is quite clear what is visual aid. I don't need to explain it because you know what is visual and objects and all. So audio aid, the aid that involve the sense of hearing are called audio aids. For example, radio, tape, recorder, gramophone, mobile phone, Bluetooth speaker, etc. So the audio aids includes the whatever which creates the audio. It can be nowadays you won't see gramophone all. So just to give an idea, the range of examples. So I put this radio and all. Nobody uses radio, but in fact we have radio in our phone, but we don't use, right? Audio visual aids. The aids which include the sense of vision and as well as hearing are called audio visual aids. For example, television, film, like just now I showed it to you, that can be a aid for teaching. Smell based teaching aids. The aids that involve sense of smell are smell based teaching aids, like perfume, flowers, like agarbatti and all you can use. Types of visual aid commonly used. Charts. So I'm quite sure that you will be familiar with this. So these are a few of the examples of chart of different, like lifestyle, life cycle of the chicken, woman in history, A to Z. So I think it's quite clear. Flip chart. So flip charts are basically a format like calendar. I'll show you. In the image you may not get the actual reference. See. So basically what you do, you unfold the story or concepts step by step in this format. I hope I'm audible, right? Yeah, so this is an example of flip chart. Flannel board, right? I believe you get the sense of this material and what is flannel board. So it's basically a material like this which have slightly furry texture. This is getting eliminated because some sorry, I can't show this example because of this color. So it's basically a furry kind of material which is pasted on a hard board or any what you call roller board as a base where you can stick anything, any picture or any object or form, letter, anything like it is shown in the image. I hope this is clear. If you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me later. And roller board, you know, right? So this is how it looks. Thermocol board. You know thermocol. And what is thermocol board? It serves similar nature like flannel board. But here the things cannot be directly pasted, but you can use pins and majorly pins for pasting or displaying your text or forms. 3D models. This example may not serve your purpose, so I'll show you. This is another example which is kept here, which shows sun and the revolution, earth and moon. Is it visible? Yeah. And to just add an effect, this person or the students has included a power to it. I don't know if you can see this. The light is blinking. It's yellow. And see, the issue with yellow right now is another thing. We can't deal with it because yellow is eliminated from my whole space. I hate yellows here now. Stages of teaching aid. Planning and making teaching aids. Use of teaching aids. So basically, the teaching aid is divided into two phases: planning and making of the teaching aid and use of teaching aids. So these are two crucial parts. So what is making of teaching aid? And why making is important? Making leads to confident explanation. So how it makes it very confident explanation? change the slide. फाटल्यान back फाटल्यान हांगा हाड इना सॉरी हे हेज्या फाटल्यान हे नेक्स्ट कितें आहा ओके राव सॉरी ह्यो नाच स्लायडी हे आसा हेज्या नंतर ह्यो ना नाच कांयच ना फुडें सॉरी जस्ट अ सेकंड आई विल टेक 2 minutes break for this sorry about it sorry for the inconvenience presentation ना presentation wrong आसा मातशें तांकां रिक्वेस्ट करता का एकदां तेच केल्लें ना तें आतां मागीर हांवें पळोवना ट्रान्सक्रिप्ट ना PDF हो करूच ना ॲड सांगता रे हें आसतलें तें तें मेकींग ऑफ हय तें हितून ट्रान्सक्रिप्ट ना येत तें मागीर हें येता वॉट इज मेकींग हांगा पावल्लो न्हू हांव मेकींग ऑफ ओके ओके येत तें आतां ब्लँक कर मरे ब्लँक कर प्रेजेंटेशनाचेर घातलेलें मेकिंग ऑफ टीचिंग एड्स झाले रेडी म्हणतो सांगतो तुका झाले रिकॉर्डिंग चालू आहे मरे हय हा रा प्रेजेंटेशन वेट राव राव माझे कलाकारी असले ना So, welcome back. Sorry for the inconvenience, for the technical glitches. So, where were we? We were at making of teaching aids. I'm audible, right? Okay. Thank you. So, making of teaching aids. Why making of teaching aid is important? Making leads to confident explanation. So, how it makes you confident? First of all, when you make something, you are aware with each tiny parts of your the objects or chart or whatever you bring in, ideate it. So it makes you very confident of each and every parts of it. So that's why process is important. So process will lead you to the relation with the object you are creating and teaching it. So most of the time, what happens is like when you think of doing something, the word perfection makes another a huge hurdle to the making. So do not worry about perfection. It's fine if it is not to the mark. You can if your it sometimes happens like your handwriting is not proper, so you worried about handwriting. So you can use printed materials to replace that. Sometimes the process itself feels like boring, but I'll tell you it is not boring, because this whatever you call boring, in fact will add to your the whole confidence of your making of the teaching aid. So in this whole vicious circle, you tend to borrow from your teaching aids from your friends. So, and sometimes what happens is like you think like your friend has done a good teaching aids and the similar kind of lesson you are giving, and you borrow it from there, and you also assume that the same teaching aid will lead to a good lesson from you, but it's not like that. Teaching aid is not a full lesson, and it's not a teaching, it's a part of your teaching. So the way you make it and the relation to your making of the teaching aid will help you to build your own confidence rather than borrowing it. It may help, like sometimes it's not possible to do this complex teaching aids, so you can borrow it, but it's better to avoid it. Sorry. So this teaching aids makes your lesson perfect. So when you make it your teaching aid, the whole composition, you are aware of your composition. So when you explain it, you don't even have to look it and identify where it is exactly. For example, I'll show you. Sorry. So when I show this chart, for example, see right now this is not done by me, but I know the content, resources. So what will happen to me? Obviously, when I show it to the class, for example, right now I'm showing it to you. The thing is like first instance, I'll have to remember where I have kept a lot of references, and I don't even know what is there inside. So the main tendency is looking at it and finding, oh, okay, so I'm showing renewable resources. Okay, I'm teaching renewable resources. So students will understand, let's understand what is renewable. So this kind of attitude develops in your class. So you tend to search in the class. So this makes a whole class becomes a mess, because you yourself are not very confident about your teaching it. So if you make by yourself, you know definitely where is the placement of this windmill, solar eclipse, solar panels and all, non-renewable resources. So this whole placement needs to be very confident. So, and that comes through making. So making is very important. So this whole confusion is avoided. So it makes your lesson in a way very peaceful and proper. So right now I explain of how the teaching aid, the making of the process is very important. So we'll move on to selection of medium for teaching aids. Selection of medium for teaching aid. If medium is wrong, then it may lead to a chaos. So I just now told you, if you are not aware of your materials and teaching aids, it will definitely lead to chaos. But at the same time, if the medium itself, for example, you are making a chart, and I'll bring it in the class and I'll hold it like this. No, I'll hold this like this. And the chart is so beautiful. Let us assume this chart is so beautiful, but the medium itself is not proper because it is moving. If the fan is there in a class, the lecture which is happening in any school which is very close by to the windy area, so this will move, right? Right now, see, it's slightly moving. Right now, the fan is off here, so you won't see that. So medium makes a very huge change in the making. For example, if the same chart is pasted on a hardboard like this, makes sense, right? It will hold by itself. You don't have to struggle for the gravity and the flexibility of the chart. So this will lead to confusion, and confusion will lead to your confidence, right? When you struggle with anything in the class, for example, just now my technology was suffering. I got confused, right? Similar kind of thing can happen in your class because of such kind of mistakes. Also, if the medium is not proper, then students also might make fun of your teaching aids. That might happen because you don't know, like in real situation, I have seen teachers bring beautiful teaching aids, but because of such technical errors, how they make it makes a huge difference and makes a huge chaos, and that will lead to fun, because students are meant to do fun in the class. So we need to be very careful at this stage. So I'll show you selection of medium also leads to the curiosity how you develop. So this, for example, if you wanted to show the types of flame and the parts of a flame, so what kind of mediums will come to your mind? A candle maybe, and the illustration of candle. So what I sometimes what happens is, like a candle, the lightning of candle is so exciting, and you tend to select lightning of candle. But have you imagined if the lightning of candle, will it help you to teach the parts of the flame? No, right? But you can use that candle at the same time. But the way you use the candle, it should be in such a way for starting to make a concept interesting and bring curiosity of the students. You can light a candle in the class, but not to explain, because candle is very small and the parts may not be explainable. This is just an example which I found interesting. So the later part of explanation of parts of flame, like in the illustration you can see orange, yellow, blue. This can be shown through a illustration or maybe a video which can show the process of melting or something like that. Now also like the concept of map geography, if you wanted to explain, the selection is also important in this case, whether to use a 3D model or whether to use a flat image. So flat image gives you flexibility, move around, point it, but the 3D object in this case, globe, may not be very relevant in the classroom because students are 40 and you won't be able to reach to all 40 students. Now, the same example, for example, I am explaining the concept of earth in a different context in poetry and science. So, you may find it funny to use caricature, for example, caricature of an earth, but you won't be able to explain this scientific concepts through this caricature sort of image. So, you need to be very careful. In poetry, it may work. In poetic explanation, you don't need very scientific and very methodological illustrations. You can use poetry caricatures in poetry section, but for scientific explanation, you need proper image. You need to be very careful when you introduce some very famous national importance figures. Like right now, you can see two images. Both are showing Mahatma Gandhi, but the difference is one is caricature and one is actual photograph. So, for example, if some student is seeing this image first time, so the first memory will retain in their mind for a longer period of time. So, if you show them only the caricature first, so that becomes the ideal image of the person. So, you need to be careful for the importance of national figures. So, making will define your use. So, making will define your use I explained you already. Use hardboard, which solves your problem in a class. Hanging issues. For example, I have come in the class. Let us assume I have come in a class like this, and I wanted to now show this and explain it with a roller board, but I don't know how to hang it. Where to hang it now? Shit, I forgot to bring this thing. What to do? By then, a whole class is interrupted. So this is very crucial. You make all this interesting charts and everything, but you haven't thought how you will hang it. So you need to bring, which I also forgot. You need to bring double-sided tape hook. I think you are aware of it. You paste it at the surface. Anyways, if I had it, I won't be able to paste it here because this is not a wall. This is not this is a cloth. So, in the case of flannel board, you can use the cloth, the furry kind of cloth, which can be pasted on the roller board and which can be used. Another thing, you can use a very flexible material like paper. The main part in this material, paper, there is a gravitational issue, right? So what we need to do is like attach a stick here at the bottom or at the top, so it stays steady. For example, like roller board. See, this is heavy, the stick which is attached on top and another at the bottom. You can use this technique for any kind of teaching it. So now we'll move on to the actual parts of teaching aids. Normally we know how to make teaching aids, but we don't know how to apply visual principles to the teaching aids. For example, this proportion, as you can see, both the examples are there, but the thing is like main concept of the proportion itself is lost because elephant is shown smaller and bird is shown bigger. I know that there may be an intention of the teacher that bird needs to be shown seen from the back, but then it loses its context. Now at least it can make sense. A huge elephant, it can explain the proportion of the elephant and the bird, and the comparison makes sense. In this case, a small bird is shown in a bigger size, an aeroplane which is way bigger than the fish. So now we'll move on to contrast. I think this word is very, I think you must be known to this word, contrast. See, right now the contrast of the image makes a huge difference, right? The same image, but the proper contrast brings the visual character to the image and clarity of the image. So move on to next, clarity. What is clarity? So clarity is basically the identity of the image which is lost by the blurriness of the image. You make it sharper, the whole thing is clear. So next is distortion. What is distortion? You most of the time when you prepare presentations, what you tend to use internet images and you directly copy it and drag it, scale it, but you forget to do one thing. You always forget about the distortion of image. So which leads to the malfunction of the character. In this case, you can see because of the distortion, you are not able to identify what it is exactly. Now at least with the proper scale you can understand. It's a giraffe. And there is another image with the two characters. So what you can understand out of this image? Next. So this is a random picture. So for example, I wanted to explain the interview session. But I have captured the interview session, but have you noticed the extra information in the image? The extra information is there, which is there, the word next. When you see for first instance the image, your eye directly get connected to that word rather than main content. So you should always remember, avoid extra information. Relevance. For example, you are explaining let us say a dining room, but you are teaching in a rural area and showing a aristocratic image of a dining. So that loses its relevance. Students may not able to connect it. So use of teaching aids. Teaching aids should create mystery, creating curiosity. See, never just randomly explain with your teaching aids. It should be brought in a class in such manner that it creates some sort of curiosity, because curiosity is very important to retain their attention. The way you bring in a teaching aid in a class, for example, I wanted to show I'll take any example. Bottle. Which bottle now? So I enter in our class like this, and I will keep it here. And I wanted to explain different kinds of bottles. But the thing is, like, I have already shown it in your class while bringing it. So the curiosity is already lost. If I wrap it with something else, so now at least you got it, like what I am trying to explain. You have kept it hidden first, and when you wanted to explain it, you are showing it to the student. So first, when you hide, you create a sort of curiosity. Students might think like, what teacher I must have brought in this. So this will lead to your class. Timing of introducing the teaching. I've shown you the video which is in the first itself, the Feviquick video. In that, timing was very important. When the character enters in the second character which comes in the video with the stick and the Feviquick, which creates an interest, and you tend to look at what is going to happen next. Oh, fishing is happening, then how this is another interesting thing. Then suddenly he picks up the stick. So this is how you lead your class. It's like a storytelling in a class. And for example, you are showing any teaching aid, images in a teaching aid. For how long you are keeping any image in front of it. For example, you are explaining different kinds of important figures, Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekanand, and whatnot. But if you are explaining it, show one by one. Don't show it together. Students might get confused out of it, and obviously the interest is lost. Sometimes unusual objects can be used for teaching aids. Let us take an example, like some of the abstract concept, like if you wanted to explain mixtures of air, how will you explain? Is it possible to explain mixtures of air? No, right? But mixtures of something you can show. Like for example, you can use biryani, right? You can bring biryani in the class and show, okay, these are the ingredients which forms one piece of or one ball of biryani, right? So this can be an absurd example. I know, like definitely this will create an interesting story in the class, and students are going to remember those examples for another 20 years. So that's how our teacher showed us mixtures. Oh, is it? Yeah. So this becomes an interesting aspect of teaching it. Also, teaching aid should be very specific. You are explaining leaves, for example, but then leaf structure, birth, but then the birth is also divided into different kinds of, some lay eggs, then some are born. So this should be very specific. If you are explaining any leaf, it should be very specific leaf. It shouldn't be random any leaf. Teaching aid can be sound. For example, if you are explaining any patriotic or historical subject, if you remember, if you can play a speech of a Nehru, which will directly takes them to historical event, right? The sound itself makes a huge difference, because the radio and the texture of the radio makes it very interesting and which relates to the historical event. Like for example, if I wanted to explain the freedom struggle and I wanted to bring students into history, I'll show a trimp of what's that speech of Nehru? I forgot. Trimp of destiny. Okay, forget it. So, so whenever you show any teaching aid in your class, at least it should generate 10 questions, because it should not be like all the aspects of the teaching aids are shown at one time. If this is the thing I'm showing, I shouldn't explain a whole together. It should be at different levels and at least questions should be asked. So it makes your class more interactive. It should not be dead. Any teaching aid should not be dead. It should reveal stories and concept step by step at different levels. See, make student to see into the teaching aids. See, it may not be like whenever you show this picture, students are going to see your picture. You have to make them see. This is lamp, this is table, this is a glass which is kept, ball. So you need to point it to them, otherwise they are going to get distracted towards your whole teaching aid. I explained you teaching aid should be gradually unfold, which I already explained. The more you show, the more you can ask questions. Just now, as I told you, at least 10 questions you asked out of the teaching aid. So your teaching is more collaborative and interactive. So it should generate more questions. Daily life objects can become good teaching aids. Like in this case, this is a very daily life object, a bottle. So and everybody knows bottle, so it becomes very easy to explain. Anything like if you wanted to explain domestic spaces, you bring a coconut, or kitchen space, bring something interesting or element of a kitchen, so which makes them, oh, we know this object. So that's how your whole class gets diverted into their interest. Teaching it should be challenging to the students, right? So any teaching aid also needs to be challenging. It shouldn't be very easy. Also it challenges their psychological level, so that it creates the curiosity, and curiosity leads to the interest in the whole subject. When you use internet images, it may not serve your aesthetic and aid. How should I explain this? If you are taking any example from internet, for example any video you are using for your teaching aid, but the creator has created for his concept or his interest, the parts of that video may be relevant to your the class, but it may not serve your whole purpose. It might distract, malfunction, so you need to be very specific. So any internet images when you use, it should serve your purpose. For example, if you type on internet, I want casual shirt, I did this, but I was not trying a specific sort of formal dress, because when I type formal, formal is a broad term. So definitely Google will show you a formal dress from Western. So this is the another problem. It may not match your aesthetic. So click photograph or have an example from your wardrobe or something like that you can do. A demonstration can be also a teaching aid which can become interesting. So for example, I wanted to explain a demonstration of soluble objects. How I'll explain? With charts will be very boring, but it's better if I bring beakers and keep it and see if chalk is soluble object, soluble material with the water or sugar. I'll explain it with demonstration. That demonstration can be also a teaching aid. Use of medium of teaching aid, video and objects. So you should be very careful when you're using what time you use video. For example, the candle example I showed you. You should be very aware of when to show video, object, or whether to go for teaching aid. So that part you need to clear it first only while making the decision of making, and when you are planning for your lesson. Actual objects should be given to the students only for observation, because it can create mess, right? So for example, I am giving leaves to the students, different leaves of a similar one single plant, and I am explaining them. I have given it to students, but then this for explaining in initial stage, you can give this example, you can show this and give this different leaves to the students, but you shouldn't keep it with them, because they will create a huge mess in a class. Show it in first instance and take it back, and then explain whole concept or whatever. Regarding inflammable and sharp objects should be handled by teachers. It's not that you should not use inflammable and sharp objects. You can use, but it should be handled by teachers only. Should not be given to the students. I think I have explained a lot of things, but still there will be a lot of questions and ideas are incomplete. I may not be able to explain all this thing, because every idea arrives at different situation and different problem solving. So I think I have covered a lot of questions, lot of areas, and in the end I'll show you one video. Okay, I'm sharing the screen. So how to nowadays now it's a online medium, how to create a instruction material, a different interesting. So this is another way to create your own things. Like this is a example which I am going to show. It's a stop motion video which I created only with the mobile phone. So this technique can be used at different for different kinds of teaching aids and different lessons. Yeah, show it.
Stop motion class.
So you have seen that video, which was created by me itself, and it's not a high-tech video. It's just shot by an app called Stop Motion Studio, which you can also access it if you need to use any animation. You can create by yourself. In fact, the sound and all the parts of the video, sound and video, are in the same app. So the last audio where I introduced Stop Motion app, which is ridiculous, I know. But it's my audio, so it's just an example. So that's how you can create an interesting online material, online instructional material, teaching aid for the students in this pandemic situation where you have to conduct your classes online. So yeah, I think the session has come to an end. So we'll move on to Q&A. Rajita? Are there any questions you can ask? It shows that it's clear or it's totally not clear. Huh? Was it clear? Maga comments में आना. Sorry. Chat clear, sir. ते सांगला मग already. Okay, so if there are no doubts, then we can call this session end. But before that, I think Prajakta ma'am will give some instructions about things. Blank.